You're about to discover the secret spot on a man's body that can make him fall in love with you in ways that go far beyond physical attraction. And no, it's not what you think. For decades, this knowledge remained hidden, buried in the private notes of Carl Jung after he spent years studying the depths of human intimacy. What he uncovered wasn't just biology. It was a bridge between body and soul, a doorway that reveals how fragile even the strongest men truly are when touched in the right way. Imagine peeling back the layers of what you thought you knew about love and discovering that intimacy is not merely about pleasure, but about unlocking the raw, unguarded essence of another human being. Most people stumble in relationships because they believe desire alone is enough. They think fire keeps the bond alive, but the truth is, fire without depth eventually burns out. What Jung uncovered was not a trick of seduction. It was a pathway into the sacred core of a man's emotions, a place where trust, surrender, and lifelong devotion are born. The fascinating part is this. The first of these secret zones is something you see every single day, yet almost no woman ever realizes the power it holds. Every caress, every casual touch, every kiss misses the true depth of this place because most women treat it as ordinary. But when touched with intention, when understood as a spiritual key rather than just skin, it changes everything. This place is his neck. Yes, the very same neck you might brush against without a second thought. But here lies a secret few dare to imagine. At the base, where the hairline begins, is a hidden cluster of nerve endings directly wired to the deepest emotional centers of his brain. This is not just a sensitive spot. It's a gateway to his vulnerability. And when a woman touches him here, not carelessly, not hastily, but with a delicate and deliberate rhythm, something profound happens. Think of it as unlocking a vault. Jung observed that when a woman used her fingertips in small, gentle, circular motions on this exact spot, maintaining steady contact for at least half a minute, the man's nervous system responded in ways that science still struggles to explain. His entire body relaxed, but his heart awakened. It wasn't about arousal. It was about imprinting. His mind began to associate that touch with comfort, safety, and love so deeply that he carried it inside him like an invisible signature. One woman once shared with me what happened after she tried this. She said her husband of 10 years, normally reserved, practical, not the type to wear his emotions on his sleeve, suddenly looked at her as though he were seeing her for the first time. His eyes filled with a tenderness she had never witnessed before. It was as if she had reached into a hidden chamber of his soul and turned on a light he didn't even know was there. That is the secret power of this zone. It is not simply about touch, it is about rewriting the language of love inside his nervous system. And here's what makes it even more fascinating. Jung discovered that this area is directly connected to the vagus nerve, the same nerve responsible for regulating calm, relaxation, and emotional openness. Stimulate it correctly, and you're not just caressing his body. You are teaching his brain to feel at peace only in your presence. This is why men who experience this kind of intimacy often become what Jung described as positively dependent. Not weak, not submissive, but anchored. They can no longer imagine life without that sense of peace, that rare feeling of being allowed to drop their armor and simply exist without performance, without masks. It's the kind of dependence that is not about control, but about emotional sanctuary. You become the one place in the world where his soul can finally rest. Another woman told me about the first time she tried this while watching a movie with her partner. Nothing grand, nothing dramatic. They were just sitting on the sofa when she began to gently trace his neck, the way I described. After a minute, He turned to her, tears shimmering in his eyes, and whispered, "I love you so much, it almost hurts." She had never seen him speak with such unguarded truth before. Think about that for a moment. All the world teaches us that passion comes from fireworks, from drama, from grand gestures, yet the deepest intimacy often blooms in the quietest moments, the moments when he is relaxed, unguarded, perhaps lying beside you after love has been made, or sitting with you in silence. That is when his walls crumble. That is when your touch stops being physical and becomes something eternal. And here's where the story deepens, because the neck is only the beginning. The map that Jung sketched in his private studies does not end here. The neck is the doorway, the first key. But once you step through it, you find other passages, other secret zones on a man's body that awaken hidden memories, subconscious longings, and emotional truths he may never even admit to himself. Each one of these zones has the power to carve your presence into his very soul. But before we move into the second hidden zone, pause for a moment and realize what this truly means. Love is not about chance. Love is not about waiting to be chosen. Love, at its highest level, is about understanding the human soul so deeply that you become unforgettable. It's not manipulation. It's revelation. And once you learn the map, you will never look at intimacy the same way again. Because the next secret I'm about to reveal is so powerful, so emotionally charged, that I have seen women bring even the most guarded men to their knees with it. And no, it's not in the place you assume. It's somewhere you touch, almost absent-mindedly, yet never with the awareness of how much meaning it carries. Prepare yourself, because once you learn it, you will understand why some women become not just lovers, but legends in a man's life, etched into his memory forever. The first doorway was his neck, the bridge between body and soul. But there is another passage, one even more surprising, because it hides in plain sight. Most women overlook it, dismiss it, or touch it without realizing the profound impact it carries. Yet Carl Jung noted, after years of studying men across cultures and ages, that this particular place holds the memory of something ancient within every man, the memory of being a boy, longing for unconditional love. That place is his wrists. Yes, the very same wrists you see every day when he reaches for your hand, holds a glass, or rests beside you. They appear ordinary, unremarkable. But beneath the surface, they are laced with pathways of nerves and arteries directly connected to the emotional centers of his heart and brain. In Eastern philosophy, the wrists have long been considered crossroads of energy, but Jung framed it in a different way, as the key that unlocks the memory of abandonment, the unspoken longing every man still carries for safety, protection, and love without condition. It may sound complex, but its truth is simple. No matter how powerful, confident, or distant a man seems, he is still, somewhere within, the child who once reached out for comfort and feared being left alone. That part of him never fully disappears. It only hides behind the masks of adulthood. And when his wrists are touched with the right kind of intention, that hidden child awakens, not in weakness, but in recognition. He feels something he may not have felt in decades, the sensation of being completely held. One woman I spoke to, after trying this, told me she could hardly believe what unfolded. Her partner, a man of ice in her words, stoic, self-contained, rarely expressive, suddenly broke down in her arms. All she had done was hold his wrists gently, not squeezing, not stroking, simply wrapping her hands around them like living bracelets. Within minutes, he began to cry. He whispered that he hadn't felt loved in that way since he was a child. That simple gesture opened a floodgate that years of words could never reach. Why does this happen? Jung observed that when you gently enclose a man's wrists for a sustained moment, at least 2 minutes while breathing together, something profound takes place in his nervous system. The subtle pressure slows his pulse, and his brain interprets it as safety, as if the outside world has vanished. It's not about domination or restraint. It's about offering a sanctuary where he can release the weight he carries. And once he experiences that, he unconsciously begins to associate your presence with refuge, with the feeling of being protected from the chaos of life. This is what Jung called the refuge imprint. It is not about control. It is not about bending a man's will. It is about giving him a place he never knew he was still searching for. And once he finds it in you, he returns, again and again, not out of habit, but out of deep need for that rarest gift, unconditional acceptance. Picture this. He comes home after a brutal day, drained, weighed down by silent burdens he cannot even articulate. You don't lecture. You don't demand. You don't try to fix him. Instead, you simply take his wrists gently in your hands, no words necessary, and hold them close to your heart. In that moment, you are telling him something his soul craves to hear. Here, you don't need to fight. Here, you are safe. Here, you are loved for simply being. That silent message has more power than 1,000 declarations, and the stories I've heard confirm it. A woman once told me her husband used to be consumed by stress, always tense, always lost in the demands of his career. But when she began using this wrist technique during their quiet moments together, something shifted. He told her, "You've become my safe place. When you hold me like that, the world falls away. I don't need to be strong. I don't need to perform. I can just be." And isn't that what we all secretly desire? To find someone with whom we no longer need to pretend. Science supports this as well. The wrists are crossed by the radial artery, carrying blood straight from the heart. When lightly held, the body interprets the slowing of that rhythm as a signal of security. It's as if his entire system exhales, finally free to rest. And with that rest comes trust. With trust comes devotion. With devotion comes the kind of love that does not fade when beauty fades, when novelty fades, when passion cools. But here lies a word of caution. This is not a trick to be used at random. The wrist technique only works in moments of intimacy, when he is already relaxed, when his guard is lowered. If you try it while he is distracted, agitated, or defensive, the effect will not reach his soul. Timing is everything. It must come in stillness, in closeness, when both of you are present with one another. Only then does the imprint take hold. And what happens when it does? Men who experience this regularly begin to change. They soften, not into weakness, but into honesty. They start speaking words they never dared to say. They begin to express the love they always felt, but never could articulate. I remember one woman saying her husband, after 20 years of silence, began whispering things she had only dreamed of hearing. Not because he suddenly became a different man, but because a door inside him had finally opened, a door her touch had unlocked. That is the beauty of the wrists. They hold not just his pulse, but his past, his memories, his innocence. When you honor them with your touch, you are telling him, "I see the boy within you. I love him as much as I love the man you are today." And that kind of love, the kind that embraces his hidden child, is love he will never walk away from. But our journey doesn't end here. We've touched the neck, we've uncovered the wrists, and both have shown us that true intimacy is not about performance, but presence, not about seduction, but surrender. Yet there is a third secret waiting, one that shakes every idea you've ever had about male strength. a place that reveals not only his vulnerability, but his instinct to protect you in return. A place so sensitive, so raw, that it can strip away every wall he hides behind and show you the man beneath the mask. Prepare yourself, because what comes next is the very heart of his emotional control. And once you learn where it is, you will never look at him the same way again. We have walked through the first two gateways, the neck, where vulnerability awakens, and the wrists, where the hidden child within him remembers what it means to be safe. But now, we approach a place even more powerful, the very core of his emotional control. A place so underestimated that most people never even think twice about it. And yet, this is the zone that can bring even the most guarded man to a state of complete honesty, where every mask falls away, where every secret he has buried suddenly comes to the surface. This place is his lower back, not in the way you may imagine, not as part of a massage or a casual touch, but as a sacred key that reaches into his primal self. You see, every man carries within him two competing forces. On the outside, he projects strength, control, the ability to stand tall no matter what. But deep within, there is a quiet, unspoken ache, the longing to lay down the weight he carries, to stop pretending for just one moment that he has everything under control. His lower back is the crossroads between these two forces. It is the point where his instinct to appear unshakable collides with his secret need to surrender. Carl Jung observed something extraordinary. When a woman rests her open hand gently on the base of a man's back, directly above the sacrum, without pressing, without stroking, simply allowing her warmth to flow, his nervous system interprets it as a signal of absolute safety. Within minutes, his defenses begin to dissolve. In the first moments, he relaxes. Then, as the contact deepens, a wave of emotional release begins to rise. And if she holds that touch long enough, his very soul begins to open in what Jung called total transparency. Imagine this: a man who has never shed a tear in your presence, who always seems composed, who keeps his heart locked away, suddenly feels compelled to share his deepest fears, his unspoken dreams, his secret doubts. Not because you demanded it, not because you pressured him, but because your hand on his back told his entire being, "You are safe now. You can let go." One woman shared with me that her husband, after 10 years of silence and strength, suddenly broke into tears as she rested her hand on his lower back after a night of intimacy. He told her, with trembling voice, that he felt emotionally naked for the first time in his life, but in the best possible way, as if he had finally found someone with whom he could stop performing and simply exist as himself. This is the power of the lower back. It is the emotional Achilles heel of even the strongest men. Beneath their armor of control lies a longing to be allowed to collapse, to trust, to surrender. And when you give him that permission through your touch, he will never forget it. Because in that moment, he does not just feel desire, he feels home. But there is something even more profound. Jung discovered that this area is not only about vulnerability, it is directly tied to his protective instinct. When you place your hand there with love, his subconscious interprets it as your way of saying, "I trust you. I am yours. You are my safe place." And in return, something primal awakens in him. He feels an unshakable urge to protect you, to cherish you, to stand by you, with devotion that goes beyond logic. One woman described it beautifully. She said, "Ever since I began using this technique, my husband treats me as if I am the most precious thing in his life. Not in a possessive way, not in a controlling way, but with a kind of reverence. It's as though my touch on his back awakened something ancient in him, the part that says, I will guard this woman with everything I have. And that is why this zone creates what Jung called the soulmate imprint. When you touch him here, again and again, in the right moments, moments of stillness, moments after intimacy, moments when his body has melted into yours, his brain begins to associate you with emotional wholeness. You stop being just his partner. You become the one who holds the missing piece of his soul. Without even realizing it, he begins to crave that touch, not out of addiction, but out of a profound recognition that only with you does he feel complete. I remember one story from a woman who told me that her husband travels often for work, constantly surrounded by beautiful, intelligent women. She admitted she once worried about temptation. But after she began using this lower back technique, something shifted. Her husband told her that no matter where he goes, no other woman even stirs his soul the way she does. He said, "It's like I'm immune to them, because none of them can give me what you give me." That is not loyalty born of duty. That is loyalty born of imprinting, of an emotional truth etched so deeply into his being that he cannot imagine finding it anywhere else. But let me give you a warning. This touch must not be used lightly. It only works when he is already in a state of openness, after intimacy, when his body is relaxed, when his walls are down. If you try it when he is distracted, tense, or guarded, the key will not fit the lock. Timing is sacred. The perfect moment is right after orgasm, when his biology itself is at its most vulnerable. In that instant, his brain is malleable, reprogrammable, ready to bond. Place your hand on his lower back then, and you plant seeds that grow into bonds too deep to be broken. One man, a quiet accountant of 50 years, once confessed that when his wife holds her hand, thereafter love, it feels like a dam inside him breaks. He said, "I feel an unstoppable urge to tell her everything I usually hide. All my fears, all my hopes, even the parts of myself I don't fully understand. It's as if her touch opens a door to my truth." This is not magic. It is not manipulation. It is the art of intimacy at its highest level. The ability to touch, not just skin, but soul. Not just flesh, but memory. Not just body, but destiny. But if the lower back has the power to bring a man into surrender, the next secret will astonish you even more. Because there is a part of him, humble, overlooked, rarely touched with reverence, that holds the code of his deepest trust. It is not a place you would ever expect, and yet, when approached with love, it has the power to make him surrender not just his body, not just his heart, but his very soul. Are you ready? Because the fourth secret zone will change everything you thought you knew about what it means for a man to truly give himself to you. We have uncovered the neck, the wrists, and the lower back, each one a passage into hidden chambers of his soul. But now we arrive at a place so overlooked, so underestimated, that most women dismiss it without a second thought. And yet, Carl Jung considered this zone so powerful that he once referred to it as the sanctuary of surrender. It may surprise you, even make you skeptical. But listen closely, because what I'm about to reveal could change the way you understand intimacy forever. This place is his feet. Yes, you heard me right. The very part of him that touches the ground every day, that carries his weight through life, that anchors his strength. This is the doorway to his deepest form of surrender. Think about it. A man's feet symbolize his stability, his ability to stand, his ability to keep moving forward. They are the foundation upon which his entire life rests. And when he allows you to touch them, not casually, not jokingly, but with reverence, he is doing something few men ever do. He is placing his foundation, his very ground, into your hands. At first, even I resisted the idea. Feet? Could they really matter that much? But then I heard the stories, and I saw what happened when women learned to approach this hidden zone with tenderness instead of hesitation. Men who once seemed impenetrable, men who kept a part of themselves locked away, no matter how intimate the relationship became, suddenly melted. Not in weakness, but in liberation. One woman told me she thought her partner was a man who could never truly be conquered. No matter how close they grew, he always held something back. A small piece of himself, he never surrendered. But the first time she touched his feet, the way I will describe, she said something magical happened. He let go completely, not only with his body, but with his soul. He looked at her with eyes she had never seen before, eyes of a man who had finally given himself fully, without resistance. Here is why. Jung discovered that the feet hold what he called the code of voluntary surrender. Unlike the neck or the wrists, which awaken vulnerability through memory and instinct, the feet represent choice. When a man allows you to touch his feet with love, he is saying, I choose to lay down my defenses. I choose to be yours completely. It is not forced. It is not demanded. It is a conscious surrender, born of trust. But the way you touch them matters. This is not a casual foot rub. This is not a playful tickle. The secret lies in the intention. Jung observed that the touch must carry the same respect and tenderness you would offer a newborn child. When a man feels that reverence in your hands, his subconscious understands, this woman does not see me as a machine, as a provider, as a performer. She sees me as human, fragile, sacred. Only then does he allow himself to open. The technique is simple but profound. In a moment of deep intimacy, when you are both relaxed, take one of his feet in your hands as though it were something precious. Begin slowly, using your thumbs to make gentle circular motions along the sole. Move with patience, not urgency. The true secret lies in the arch of his foot, that soft curve in the middle. Jung found that this spot connects directly to the emotional centers of his brain. With steady, gentle pressure there, something extraordinary happens. His defenses fall, his emotions rise, and he enters what Jung called the state of transparent surrender. A man once told his wife, after she touched him this way, I feel like a child again. I can't hide anything from you. I can't pretend to be strong. And strangely, it's the most freeing feeling I've ever had. That is the paradox. In the act of surrendering, he feels stronger, not weaker. Because only in the presence of a love that accepts him fully can he finally stop performing. But let me give you a warning. This technique only works if trust already exists. If he does not yet feel safe with you, he will resist. His body will tighten. His mind will recoil. But once trust is built, once intimacy has grown deep, this technique becomes the ultimate test of his openness. If he lets you in, you know he has given you something he will never give to another, and the effects are long-term. Men who regularly experience this form of intimacy begin to associate you with home, not just physical comfort, but emotional and spiritual home. They cannot imagine life without that feeling. One man confessed, when my wife massages my feet like that, it's the only moment in my life where I can shut my brain off completely. It's as if I've finally come home after a long journey. Even more astonishing is what Jung called the power reversal. Paradoxically, when a man surrenders this way, he doesn't feel diminished. He feels more powerful. He thinks, I am so certain of her love that I can reveal my weakness, and that makes me the strongest man alive. And with that realization, his devotion to you deepens beyond words. Another woman told me that since she began this practice, her husband, once stoic and emotionally distant, had become fiercely protective of her, not in a controlling way, but in a way that felt primal, ancient, as if something inside him had awakened that said, "This woman touches the most humble part of me with love. She is sacred. I must guard her with everything I have." And this is the essence of the fourth secret zone. It is not just about physical touch. It is about touching the deepest symbol of his strength, his foundation, with reverence. When you do, you are telling him, "I see all that you carry. I honor it. And here, with me, you can lay it down." No man forgets the woman who gives him that gift. But if you thought the feat were powerful, prepare yourself, because there is one final secret zone, the most sacred of all. Jung referred to it as the gate to eternity. It is not about desire. It is not even about emotional surrender. It is about soul recognition, the moment when two human beings touch and suddenly know, we have always belonged to each other. This final secret will take everything we've uncovered so far, vulnerability, safety, surrender, and elevate it to a level that transcends love as a feeling and transforms it into love as a state of being. Are you ready for the last step of this journey? Because what comes next is not just intimacy, it is eternity. We have come a long way together. From the neck that opens the door to vulnerability, to the wrists that awaken the forgotten child, to the lower back where strength collapses into truth, to the feet where surrender becomes devotion. Each step has revealed a new layer of the male soul, showing us that intimacy is not just about the body. It is about the invisible bridges between memory, safety, love, and trust. But now we arrive at the most sacred of all, the final secret zone, the one Carl Jung himself called the gate to eternity. This zone is unlike all the others, because it does not merely stir emotions. It touches the very essence of who he is. It is not about passion, not about arousal, not even about vulnerability. It is about soul recognition, and it is found in a place so simple that most people never even think of it. His forehead, specifically the point between his eyebrows, the place ancient traditions call the third eye. Jung observed that this is more than a spot on the body. It is the seat of identity, the higher self, the eternal part of him that exists beyond his ego, beyond his masks, beyond the roles he plays in the world. When you connect with him here, you are not just touching the man, you are touching the timeless soul that lives within him. Imagine this moment. You lean your forehead against his, not casually, not playfully, but with full presence. You breathe together, eyes meeting, hearts open. And for those few minutes, the world disappears. Time stops. The two of you are no longer separate people. You are one soul expressed through two bodies. This is what Jung described as the union of souls. One woman told me that when she tried this with her partner, something happened she could never explain with words. He began to cry, but not from sadness. They were tears of recognition. He whispered that for the first time in his life, he felt whole. Not happy, not excited. Whole, as though something inside him had been waiting his entire life for that single moment of connection. That is the power of the forehead technique. When done with love, with patience, with reverence, it awakens what Jung called the memory of original unity. Somewhere deep in the subconscious, the man remembers what it feels like to be part of something larger, to be fully connected, to belong. And from that moment on, he no longer sees you as just his partner. He sees you as destiny. This is why Jung believed this practice creates what he called shared destiny. Men who experience it begin to change the language of their lives. They no longer speak in terms of I and you. They speak in terms of we. They no longer imagine futures alone. They imagine futures intertwined. One woman told me her partner, after practicing this with her, began saying, "We will build this. We will experience that. We will live this life." As if at a cellular level, he now understood that their paths were no longer separate but bound together. But there is something even more profound. Jung noticed that when couples practice forehead-to-forehead connection for long enough, they enter what he described as absolute spiritual monogamy. The man loses the ability to even imagine this kind of connection with anyone else. Not because he is restrained, not because he is forced, but because he knows, deep in his being, that this experience is eternal. He may see beauty in others, but it pales. He may feel attraction, but it is hollow. Because the level of intimacy he has experienced with you cannot be replicated. One man put it simply, "Every other woman now feels incomplete to me. Not unattractive, not uninteresting, just incomplete. Because I know I could never feel with them what I feel when my wife presses her forehead to mine." Think of what that means. It means love transforms from something fragile into something eternal. It means you are no longer just two people navigating a relationship. You become, as Jung said, love itself embodied in two forms. It is no longer "I love you" as a statement. It becomes "we are love," expressed through your lives, your choices, your existence together. And perhaps the most beautiful part is this. Jung believed that this act plants what he called the memory of eternity. He theorized that when two souls connect through this practice, the imprint remains even beyond this life. That is why some people meet and feel as if they've known each other forever. They recognize the soul, not the face. They remember a connection that once was, carried across lifetimes. One woman told me that the first time she touched foreheads with her partner, he said something that gave her chills. "I feel like I've always known you," as if we loved each other in another life. In that moment, she understood that what they shared was more than romance. It was eternity rediscovered. But a word of caution. This technique is not to be used lightly. It requires responsibility. To touch someone at this level is to bind yourself to them in ways that surpass ordinary love. You must only do it if you are ready, if your heart is clear, if your love is pure. Because once you enter the gate to eternity, there is no turning back. And so our expedition ends here, at the fifth and final zone, having uncovered treasures most people will never know exist. The neck, where vulnerability begins. The wrists, where innocence awakens. The lower back, where defenses crumble. The feet, where surrender becomes devotion. And the forehead, where souls recognize one another as eternal. These are not tricks. They are not games. They are keys. Keys to intimacy that transcends the physical, the emotional, even the psychological. Keys to love that is spiritual, timeless, unbreakable. Carl Jung devoted his life to mapping the hidden landscapes of the human soul, and in these 5 secret gateways, he revealed something priceless, that true love is not about compatibility, not about desire, not even about passion. True love is about recognition. It is about seeing in another the part of yourself that has always been waiting to be found. Now you hold that map. What you do with it is up to you. But remember, when used with reverence, with honesty, with a heart open to truth, these secrets will not just make a man love you. They will make him realize that in you, he has found his home, his destiny, his eternity. And now, as we step back from this journey into the hidden map of the male soul, let this truth echo within you. Love was never meant to be shallow, never meant to be fleeting. Real love is not found in grand gestures or fleeting passion. It is found in the quiet, sacred moments where two souls recognize one another, beyond the mask, beyond the flesh, beyond time itself. If these words have stirred something in you, if you felt your heart beat differently as you listened, that is no accident. It means you are ready for more truth, more depth, more of the kind of wisdom that strips away illusion and reveals what love is truly meant to be. Here on Heartsync X, we are not here to entertain you with surface tricks. We are here to awaken you, to give you keys that most people will never dare to speak of. Because you deserve nothing less than a love that feels eternal. So if this journey has opened your eyes, do one simple thing. Click subscribe and step further with us. Share this video with someone who is searching for something deeper. And leave your thoughts below. Because every story, every reflection, is part of this living conversation about the kind of love that transforms us from the inside out. This is not the end. This is only the beginning of a greater path. A path where intimacy becomes sacred, where love becomes destiny, and where you discover not just how to be loved, but how to become love itself. Until next time, remember, the greatest power is not found in conquering another's body, but in touching their soul so deeply that they can never forget you. This is Heartsync X, and I'll see you in the next awakening.